No, the draft is actually over. 59 picks. That's what we landed on in the end. Well done, Cal. A big tick to you. Again, we're going to recap exactly what has happened here across the 2 nights of the 2022 NAB AFL Draft, going all the way back to night 1 and round 1. It was Aaron Cadman who was the number 1 draft pick. Will Ashcroft, that bid coming from North Melbourne, so he went number 2 as soon as the Lions matched that bid. Harry Sheasel, George Wardlaw there, 3 and 4, just as we thought. The pick that caused Cal a lot of sleepless nights was the pick 5 with the Bombers. They took Elijah Sardis, then Bailey Humphrey fell to the Gold Coast Suns, Cameron McKenzie to Hawthorn. So that was all pretty straightforward, that top 10, Cal. And as we go over the page, this is where it started to get a little bit interesting, because that bid for Jasper Fletcher came a little bit earlier than we had thought, but Elijah Hewitt at West Coast, that was the one.
No, it was. And they had the big call to make between Elijah Hewitt and Ed Allen, the locals there, and also Matt Jefferson, to be honest, was right in that conversation as well. So that was where that one left. And then the last pick of last night was Darcy Jones at the Giants, which opened up things for round 2, which became a key defender marketplace.
It was.
Who wants one? We got him. Max Grzuski at the Giants. He can go back and go forward. Harry Barnett, the ruckman there, changes things up a little bit for the Eagles mix. They went for pace and power alongside of that. Look at all the other key backs. Essendon, Lewis Hayes, there's one there. Braden George, I think that's a good pick for North Melbourne. Put him away for next year, but get him ready with his ACL coming back and a prospect there. Go a couple more. James Van Ness went to St Kilda. Hugh Davies went to Fremantle to continue the key defenders as well. Tom McCallum, another tall defender, to the Port Adelaide Footy Club. And Jed Adams, a tall defender at Melbourne as well.
And then we started to get into the 3rd round of draft. Norman's, I was really happy for Harvey Gallagher. As we mentioned, the 19-year-old comes back and gets his opportunity. Another mature ager finds his way to Fremantle in Tom Emmett. They also went for a ruckman in Max Noble. Adelaide, I think, had a really good mid part of this draft because they got a couple of really good young inside midfielders, Billy Dowling and Hugh Bond a little bit later. Alwyn Davey Jr., the bid came in from Hawthorn there that Essendon matched. Richmond started their night with Caleb Smith. And then we just saw Geelong then ending that round with Phoenix Foster, who had a really good year for Norwood.
Yeah, Tom Scully, Port Adelaide, they waited a long time to get into the draft, but they've ended up with 3 players in the end, Tom Scully being one of those, a key forward. Jaden Davey, the twin of Alwyn, obviously get picked up as well then. So the first father-son twins in the AFL, which is fabulous. Noah Long, Kyle Marshall, the very last pick of this year's draft, off to Port Adelaide, a key defender as well. So Port Adelaide really stocking up their key pillars at either end of the ground. As we take a look now at some of the clubs and what they did, and we're going to start with the Giants, Riley, because they had 5 picks in the first 34, Cal, and it all started with Aaron Cadman, but Harry Ralston was probably a surprise to the Giants. It might have thrown their plans out a little bit, even though Adrian Caruso, when we spoke to him, he didn't let on about that.
No, I guess the fact that we often forget around Aaron Cadman is that he's a star and he's a really good player. And just because we've known that he was going to go to the Giants for a little bit, I think people have sort of forgotten about it to some degree, that he joined the Giants. He is their key forward that they want to build their team around. So Harry Ralston came a little bit later, their academy player. Darcy Jones at the end of the first round. Then they held on to their first pick tonight for the start of the second round, took the key defender in Max Grzuski, and Toby McMullen, I'm a fan of. I think there's real upside in him as a small forward / midfield option too. So I like the mix. There is a mix there of picks. There's a key forward, there's an in and under midfielder, there's a bit of everything small. There's a key back and key forward in one in Grzuski, and Toby McMullen could be quite an exciting prospect. So I like the mix and the blend. And people talk about blend. When you've got 5 picks, you need to have a blend. I think they've made that deal.
And hopefully the Giants can actually hold on to some of these top draft picks, as well as we know, unfortunately, they've lost some of them in the trade period and the like. So really an interesting time with a new coach, as well as we look at North Melbourne, who also have a new coach, Riley, Harry Sheasel and George Wardlaw. I think we knew for a while they were going to go to North Melbourne, but Braden George, probably a forgotten player, given he's going to miss with an ACL injury next season. But what we saw from him is very, very talented.
Yeah, it is. Let's start at the top, though. They started this trade period, this off-season, with pick 1. And essentially 4 pick 1, they got 2 players because they decided to split it. They moved back to 2 and 3. They made the bid on Will Ashcroft, and they got Harry Sheezel and George Wardlaw, which, I mean, you could have made an argument that either of those 2 players could have been in the pick 1 conversation themselves regardless. So Sheezel gives them a bit of forward half quality, which I really think they desperately needed. He'll be a goal kicker that'll probably play some football next year. And Wardlaw, we didn't see him, obviously, because of his hamstring injuries throughout the year. We didn't see a lot of him. But what we saw power. We saw a really inside baller player that can make a difference in that midfield group, which I think their midfield group needs. I like some of the players they've got there, but a lot still depends on Will Phillips and Tom Powell coming through to aid the likes of Luke Davies-Uniacke, Jai Simpkin and Ben Cunnington. Braden George, love this pick. You can give him time, but if you've got a young list, you've got the patient approach. You can take that patient approach because you're not going to be in the window to challenge next year. Back the talent, back that he comes back in 2024 and makes an impact for your football club. And then Cooper Harvey, the good news story there for North Melbourne, the son of the AFL, VFL all-time games record holder in Brent Harvey. He comes to the club as a father.
Looking at the Pies, they took 3 selections because they actually traded out pick 30 to Carlton for a future second round, Cal. But Ed Allen, Jacob Ryan, a key defender there, and Joe Richards, who's a 22-year-old from Wangaratta. Nice to see some mature age players not born in the 2000s making their way on the list.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting draft for me in that I feel like all these players were probably ranked a fair bit higher than the picks that they were taken from within. Like, we heard that the Jacob Ryan pick, he might have been linked to the Pies at pick 16. We had Derek Hine on the show a couple of days ago on Draft Night Countdown, and he said, oh, well, he's in the mix, and I think he was in that mix. So to get him at their second pick after Ed Allen probably slipped a couple of spots later than most people would have predicted heading into night 1 was a good win. And then Joe Richards as well. I think he was probably around the mark if they had stayed with their third pick inside the top 30. They moved that back as part of a trade, so did that deal and managed to still get Joe Richards, who they've been interested in, to add some spark and spunk to that forward line alongside Jack Ginnivan. So that'll be an interesting mix as well.
And then finally, Riley, just looking at St Kilda and what they achieved in the draft, and it all started last night. Pick 10, Mateus Filippo. He's already been down to training today as a commander keen, but he is a really great talent.
He is, yeah. I was really intrigued by what St Kilda would do heading into this draft. They obviously started with pick 10. I think they were in a bit of a strange situation where they were probably just waiting to see whether or not it was Elijah Sardis, Cam McKenzie, Jai Clark, Ruben Jinby, Mateus Filippo, which one fell through to them. It was Mateus Filippo in the end. I think they've got a really good player there. We spoke about the talent that he's got and that forward half ability that he's got, but he's also a young draftee. We mentioned that his birthday's not until December, so he's got a full year of development, another full year of development under his belt next year as well. And then I was really impressed with the pick of Ollie Houghton at 35. I think they needed a bit more X-factor forward of the ball. He provides that through his natural athleticism and his energy, a high-energy player and a lot of fun in terms of the way he attacks the ball and takes marks inside the forward half. So I like those 2 picks in terms of what they add from the forward half perspective. And then they strengthen key position stocks on either side of that pick of Ollie Houghton with James Van Ness, who's a key defender, and Isaac Healer, who can play as a key forward. So ultimately, I really like the mix that they got, the balance that they got in this draft pool, and the fact that they were able to start that with Mateus Filippo, who's I thought was one of the really top echelon players of this year's draft, and they were able to get him at pick 10. I think that was a big win for them to start the night.
So winners galore. Any surprises from each of you that you sort of think is worth talking about?
Oh, there's going to be some players who are unlucky to be missing out, and that's not a surprise as such, but it's more just the reality of how many picks there were on the table. As you said, 59 players drafted across the 2 nights. That's the lowest ever. That means that there's some really good players who are going to be unlucky, and some will get some opportunities in the rookie draft tomorrow. I think Blake Drew should get a chance, and I think he will. As a rookie selection, I think Luke Teal is an option as well for a rookie selection. I think Mitch Skubowski will be an option as well as a rookie. So there's some good players who missed out, and that's a tough night for them. And as you've said, Riley, that there are a number of bounce-back stories in recent years with the mid-season draft. Harvey Gallagher being one of them tonight, who's overlooked last year in the national draft, overlooked in the mid-season draft, and comes back with a spell of form to get himself picked in the early enough part of the draft, really, where he wasn't in the danger zone. So, look, it's tough to be. It's never been tougher to be drafted. There's no doubt about that. And the players who've got their chance really deserve it, and there's a lot of players who missed out who would have deserved an opportunity as well, and you wouldn't have raised an eyebrow. So they'll go to bed tonight disappointed, but the rookie draft tomorrow is a new day, and there'll be some selections made, and there'll be also some opportunities through the pre-season supplemental period to get them to train on and show their wares. Nick Martin was overlooked this time last year.
Exactly. So the rookie draft, 3 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Time on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app. So yes, the rookie draft and the pre-season draft with myself and Cal. So make sure you tune in for that. And that is it from us. It has been a huge 2 nights of the 2022 NAB AFL Draft. Congratulations and best of luck to all the draftees as they start a new chapter of their lives. Cal and Riley, thank you to you both. You have both done an inordinate amount of work. It's been crazy to watch you in particular making all of those phone calls every day for the last 3 weeks. So congratulations to both of you.
Thanks, Nat, and likewise to you. Big weekend for you getting the AFLW Grand Final done and catching that flight done. I know it was a charter flight, but you're at the front of the plane, but it's all good on that front. But it's good that you made time for the draft.
Oh, thanks as always. It's my favourite time of the year. Thank you as well to Sarah Ollie, who has been roaming around Marvel Stadium for us. Plus a massive shout out to our fabulous producer Jack Haley, the crew, production team, graphics, and the team that's been on the floor in the studio keeping us hydrated for the night. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on NAB AFL Draft Night Live. The rookie and pre-season draft will be live here on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app tomorrow, as I mentioned, 3 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Time. So hopefully you can join us then. Until then, good night.